Hello students, today we are doing Module 6, Lesson 8. I will do the problem set with you, and then you will do the homework and have your parents check your answers. For the problem set, let's start with number 1. It says use the area model to represent 250 hundredths. Complete the number sentence. Practice saying this fraction with me for just a moment. 250 hundredths, you repeat. 250 hundredths, you repeat. All right, so in order to figure out how many tenths there are, I'm going to take this over to the side. In order to turn 100 into 10, that's what I'm looking for, because it says tenths. In order to turn it into a 10, 100 divided by what equals 10? I need to divide by 10. And so, whatever I do to the bottom, have to do to the top. 250 divided by 10 equals 25. So these two are called equivalent fractions. We've talked a lot about those. Equivalent fractions. So because 250 hundredths equals 25 tenths, I can use that thinking up here to say 25 tenths. Now 25 tenths, I'm going to bring that over here. I'm going to turn it into an addition sentence. 10 tenths plus 10 tenths plus 5 tenths. So here what we're really looking at is 1 plus 1 plus 5 tenths. You might also think of that as 1/2. That's like extra bonus information, okay? So coming back over here, we have how many ones? Looking over here, we have 1 plus 1, so that's 2 ones. How many tenths do we have? 5 tenths, and so we write that as 2.5. Then we need to use the area model to color this in and show what that looks like. So if I have 2 whole, that's going to be this whole thing and this whole thing. And then 5 tenths, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these pieces. So it's going to be half. Doing my best with what I've got here. There we are, finished with number 1. Moving on with number 2. Oh, excuse me, part B. Part B, in the space below, explain how you determined your answer to part A. So I took 250 hundredths divided by 10, which equals 25 tenths, which equals 10 tenths, plus 10 tenths, plus 5 tenths, which equals 2 and 5 tenths, which equals 2 and 5 tenths, or 2.5. Now, explain does mean write. Explain with words. So on the homework, you will practice writing that out with words. On to number 2, draw place value discs to represent the following decompositions. 2 ones equals how many tenths? So if I have 2 ones, where did those ones come from? If I have tenths, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm drawing them as 2 rows of 5. I bundle them, and that becomes 1, 1. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that becomes the second one. So if I have 2 ones, how many tenths would that be? That would be 20 tenths. Now I would write that as 2.0. Onto the other side, if I have 2 tenths, where are those tenths coming from? They're coming from the hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here I have two lines of 5, which is a 10. We're bundling it. That's becoming a tenth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bundling that, it's becoming that second tenth. So I have 2 tenths. How many hundredths would that be? That would be 20 hundredths. Okay, so this would be written as 0.2 for tenths or 0.20 for hundredths. Either way, they are equivalent decimals. Taking a look at the next part, 1, 1, and 3/10. So here's place value disk for the 1, place value disk for the tenths. Do I need to bundle? No, I do not need to bundle. Now, I might need to unbundle and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is asking for how many tenths would this be. If I unbundle the 1, it becomes 10 tenths. Plus 3/10, I have 13 tenths. Sorry, that looks like a 7. It should just look like a wall. 13 tenths. Next one, 2 tenths and 3 hundredths. How many hundredths would this be? Hopefully by now you're noticing a pattern. This would unbundle, this would unbundle. Each of those would become 10. So 10 plus 10 plus 3 equals 23 hundredths. So doing some unbundling to figure that out. Now there is a reason for this, because then when you get to number 3, you're doing it without drawing place value disks. So 1, 1 equals 10 tenths. And 1.7 equals 17 tenths. If that's confusing, here's another way to think about it. 1 equals 10 tenths. So you recognize the fraction. 10 over 10 would equal 1 whole. And then 1.7 equals 1 and 7/10, which would be 10 tenths plus 7/10, which would equal 17 tenths. Long story short, it will become 17 tenths. Then you will have 107 tenths. Over to the next column, 20 tenths, 29 tenths, 209 tenths. Really, you're just looking at the number that is in the tenths place, and you're moving your decimal over so that you're looking at just how many tenths is it. You're not differentiating between whole numbers and part numbers right now. So 1 down to number 4. Let's go down to number 4. Decompose the units to represent each number as hundredths. So 1 whole equals 100 over 100. So here we have 100 hundredths. 1.7 then also equals 1.70. And that's where we see the 170 over 100. 10.7. Now, the reason why I added a 0 here is because if I'm looking at just the 7, I'm looking at tenths. But I need to extend it out to the hundredths place. So I put a 0 there to extend it to the hundredths place. So same thing I'll need to do down here. 10.70. Again, I need to be sure I'm in the hundredths place. And so now this becomes 1070. I can add a comma, 1070 hundredths. Next column, 2 equals 200 over 100 for hundredths. So that would be 200 hundredths. 2.9, again, not just the tenths place, but also looking at the hundredths place. So this becomes 290 hundredths. Then this 20.9, going to move that out to 20.90. Again, need it to be in the hundredths place. So it's going to become 2090 hundredths. Moving on. All right, what this has really been doing is getting you ready for this final exercise. Complete the chart. The first one has been done for you. So I prefer to start from the top, work my way all the way down in one column, and then move on to the next column. So here I see my decimal, 2.1, writing as a mixed number, 2 and 1/10. Seeing my decimal, 4.2, writing it as a mixed number, 4 and 2/10. Go ahead and give the other 3 a try, hit pause on this video, and come back and check your answers in just a moment. All right, once you've checked your answers, moving on to tenths. So now now we see the mixed number, and now we're writing that as tenths, both in what's called unit form and then in fraction form. So here we go. 4 and 2 tenths would become 42 tenths. And then I write that as a fraction, 42 over 10. Go ahead and give the next 3 a try. Pause this video and then come back and check your answers. All right, once you've checked your answers, ready for the hundredths. So we have our 42 tenths, and now I need to turn that into 420 hundredths. Again, we're just practicing writing the same thing in lots of different ways, which is okay. It's making us flexible learners. 420 over 100. I am just writing hund. You get what I mean. Go ahead and do those last 3. Pause this video, come back and check your answers. Well, let me write a 0 there. That's what I want to write though. There we go. Last one. All right, once you've checked your answers, please move on to your homework assignment, lesson 8 homework, and then have your parents check your answers. Until next time.